What's going on, Spittin' Chiclets fans? Biz here, and we are going to be in Detroit, Michigan, August 6th and 7th at Greektown Casino. We're going to set up the ball hockey courts. We're going to be playing some roller hockey. And even if you didn't get accepted to play in the tournament, you can still show up and party with us. We're even going to have a little post-game party at where, Whit?
Old Shillelagh's in Detroit. It'll be a time and a half. Come for the hockey, stay for the Pink Whitney. Let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Pink Whitney Draft Show from your pals at Spittin' Chiclets. And we're lucky to be joined by a very special guest, Coyotes legend and current Chief Hockey Development Officer for Arizona, Shane Doan. Dona, thanks so much for joining us. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on again, guys. This is fun. I enjoy it.
Oh, it's our
the
pleasure.
Only person on my phone that knew anything about the draft, so I'm like, I guess I'll reach out to Donor. And just so you know, we don't cover anything in the first round because I'm one of the jealous guys who wasn't drafted until the second day. So we don't cover all the high end prospects. We cover the plugs around here.
I love it. That's perfect. That sounds great because I don't know much about the first round. So.
What were we talking about right before we started recording? The movie Pitch Perfect. You dropped a joke, RA?
Yeah, I dropped a acapella joke. The acapella's been big this week, and I asked Shane if he'd seen Pitch Perfect, and he informed me it was supposed to be a totally different movie, and that's where we left off.
Yeah, it was the way that it all ended up kind of coming together was totally different than the way that they had it. The guy that plays it in Pitch Perfect was in the Broadway show. He was in. We went and watched it, Biz.
Oh, it's becoming a movie now too, right?
Yeah. He was. He played in.
Oh my God! I can't believe I can't remember. And the only reason that I probably don't remember is my jaw was dropped when I saw the price of the ticket. Donor actually stepped up and paid for it. It was something about the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
It was the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
$700 ticket to go see a Broadway show, and I said absolutely not. And Donor says, "Biz, I'll pay for 500 of it." I said, "Sure, let's go." And it was actually not too bad, but surprisingly what we heard about it early on, and it was done by the guys from South Park,
which it was so offside that I have a hard time with it, but it was funny.
Well, when it first came out and people didn't know how offside it was, at some points half the people would leave the theater while it was going on, and when we were there, I think maybe only a couple people walked out.
Yeah, that we'd went into it. It was a long time. It had been going on for a while, but
that was in NYC. That was a good time. Yeah. But seriously though, one of the reasons we got you on is your kid. It's his draft year. I know he was eligible last year, didn't get drafted, but he had a great year in the USHL, which is where a lot of these prospects come from now. So we did want your insight, and of course, being with the Coyotes and being as heavily involved as you are, and the draft being a major component to the Coyotes at this point, because we need to make sure we get good prospects. We needed to get you on. We need to get your insight because this is the next wave of player in the NHL.
Yeah. It's going to be huge, and the draft is always fun to be part of. Josh not going last year, that was hard. Like that was hard for Josh. Where I mean, it wasn't hard other than he wanted to get drafted, but the kind of perseverance this year. It's one of those cool stories where he didn't get drafted last year. Didn't really make that big of a difference. He had to have a good year, whether he got drafted or not. This year he had a good year, and now he's getting drafted, or hopefully he gets drafted, and he's got a legitimate shot at it. So he's excited.
Hey, speaking of your kid though, like what's he projected to go right now?
Well, he goes anywhere from like 45 to like 120. It's like the largest, because he didn't get drafted last year. It's kind of that, where do you put him in? And he had a great year this year. So, you didn't like him last year. So do you like him that much more this year? It's hard to kind of figure it all out. So he's got a huge mix, but it makes it fun. It makes it so the day you never know what's going to happen.
Do you think in some way it's almost a blessing in disguise not getting picked last year, because it might have made him put the work in that he might not have otherwise? I know other guys it's happened to in the past.
Well, we talked a little bit about it because last year I think 7 guys off his team got drafted, so that made it, on top of him not getting drafted, 7 guys got drafted, and we had a little talk about it, about how, hey, had nothing to. It was all about it was their day, and make sure you're the biggest fan of your buddies, because this is the biggest day of their life, and if your time comes, it'll come. And it was funny because he was pretty comfortable, and he's just a comfortable kid in his own skin. And he was like, hey, it didn't really matter what happened to me last year. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do everything I can to have a great year this year. And I was looking forward to the year starting. And he's physically was a little bit late and just getting to the party kind of development wise. And so he knew that was still coming. And as this year happened, he kind of filled out and got a little bit stronger, and it made a big difference.
I think that's an important message too for some of the people listening. Like, we get younger kids who play hockey who listen, and another prime example, Mark Giordano, who ended up getting selected by Seattle. They joked about him. He joked on stage on ESPN that this is the first time I've ever been drafted. So it shouldn't deter these kids from working hard and thinking that they can't achieve their dreams. If anything, it should, maybe light a fire underneath them in order to work harder. Now, one of the you mentioned your kid and who he played last year, and 7 kids were drafted. He played with Chicago in the USHL, correct?
Yep.
One of the fascinating things you told me is how intense they are about their development and how they're attracting so many of these kids, because how much they're investing into these kids growing their futures.
Yeah, you looked at what he did. Ryan Hardy was the GM there, and they focused so much on development. he had a line at the beginning of the year. The first 3 or 4 games of the year were a little tough to watch. The boys were kind of all over the place, and he called them a grade 3 orchestra. Like, it's awful. You can't handle it, but don't worry. By the end of the year, it'll sound like a symphony. And they ended up winning it all. But they focus so much on, it doesn't matter how you win or lose, as much as every game is a development. Every other league other than the NHL should be a developmental league. Like, that should be your goal. And yet sometimes it gets so skewed in just winning that they forget that, hey, my goal is to actually make the boys better. And if they can do that, then that was their goal, and they did, and they worked. And I mean, they run an incredible job there, and they did an incredible job there.
Got the recorder.
Remember that? My son played, might have been the recorder in the band. Yeah. Ooh, my daughter played the violin one year. That's a tough one.
Oh, hey, kick her out to the garage to play that one. The soundproof garage. Go over the neighbors.
But yeah, she dropped that after a year.
So going back to last year, he played with which we imagine is going to be the number 1 overall pick, Owen Power, correct?
Yeah, and he was incredible. The year before, it was funny to watch him play. As I was watching him play, and we watched it pretty much every game. It's like, man, this is the only guy I think that could step into the NHL right now in the USHL. Like, I thought he'd been like a 7th, 6th, 7th defenseman, wouldn't have been good for his development. But if you put him in the NHL, he was going to have a chance to play. And so for him another year, it's been unreal to watch.
So you're saying at 17 years old, you think he could have stepped in and not looked out of place? Because I don't think that's too crazy, because he ended up going to the men's world championship as an 18-year-old. And what did he lug in the gold medal game? I think he played 25 fucking minutes, didn't he?
Yeah, he was.
That is fucking crazy.
He won player of the game for the Russian game. So in the quarterfinals, and Russia had a great team. They were the number 1 seed in the other side. Since we lost a few in a row at the beginning, we ended up squeaking in as a 4 seed. So we played the number 1 seed. He was player of the game in that game. And man, he was impressive. Like, he's just so calm and composed under pressure. He was really good. But yeah, that year, at the end of his 17-year-old year, he played last year in Michigan. And I thought, if you just watched him, if you just asked him to do the simplest thing, he could have been okay. I mean, he would have struggled a little bit with the strength, but other than that, he would have been fine. He's got such a good head on his shoulders.
RA, I don't know if you know that Donor had a little bit of a help and hand picking that team to go over to overseas to play in the World Championship. He was on the golf course with me before he went over, and it was hard in a COVID world. These guys have been stuck in their own bubbles in the NHL for so long, so convincing guys to go was a little bit difficult. But you guys ended up picking a team that went over there. I think you guys might have lost your first 3 games.
Yeah, we had a lot of losses. Got a lot of losses.
A lot of losses.
And then what? You guys just caught lightning in a bottle? Bambi legs to Owen Power ended up figuring it out, and all of a sudden he turned into fucking Jay Bomeister, or what?
You know what? It was fun in the fact that they got it turned around, and I think we won our next 7, so it worked out. Gerard Gallant did an unbelievable job, and the guys all come together, and it was fun to be there. It was hard, I think, in the beginning. You don't really feel like Team Canada until you've played a few games. And then once they started feeling like Team Canada, then they started playing like it, and it was fun to watch.
Donor, which current NHL D-man does Powell most resemble?
Oof. There's obviously an element of his game like Chris Pronger. I don't think he's as mean as Chris Pronger
I
was.
hope
Like,
not.
Prongs was
For
mean.
the other
like-
guy's sake. Yelling at fucking teammates if they have a bad period.
Yeah, he's not quite like that, but he has that confidence. I'd kind of tease him a little bit. He just has that. He's an incredible kid, really nice family, comes from a great family. He's 6'5", and he's going to probably play at about 235. Like, he's a big man. He's 215 right now, but he has that confidence. Like, well, I'm better than you. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm better than you. I'm better looking than you. I'm bigger than you. I'm stronger than you. He's incredible. So,
Do you think it's the right play for him to go back to Michigan next season?
I'm not making that decision, but I know that he's pretty.
I mean, he's getting drafted by Buffalo. I would.
He's pretty keen on his development, and they've talked about it. And I know he's mentioned it a few times. At the same time, you go first overall, they're going to be wanting him to go. If they take him, they'll want him to go right away. He's so good. His composure is what makes him so special. And he works so hard on his hands. Like, he works on them and works on them and works on them. But his composure with the puck and his skating, he's really good. Like, he's just good on his edges. He's a good player.
Well, they say if he does go first overall, he'll be the tallest first overall pick. And they did have him listed at 6'6". So I don't know if he wore thick socks that day, because you said he was listed at 6'5" maybe. And also, he'd be the first NCAA #1 overall pick since 2000. Rick DiPietro was the last time an
Seriously? I didn't know that he went to. Where did he go to school? Where did DiPietro go to school?
BU.
Oh,
Oh yeah, sorry guys, didn't mean to do that to you.
Sorry, Whitney would have yelled at you if he was here.
Hey, but before
in unison. Don't worry, guys. We know you're from Boston. Don't worry, guys.
Before we dive into all these other prospects, when you got drafted, what was it? The '95 draft?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Holy man.
Who were the other big names in your draft, and where was it?
It was in Edmonton, so in like my backyard. It was actually cool. It was fun.
You ended up going 7th. Did you think you were going that high?
No, I thought I was going anywhere from, it was like, I'd heard 4 to like 11. So I was right in the middle. So I was right in that area. Edmonton had the 6th pick, which I was the biggest Oilers fan in the world at that moment. And then it was kind of like the girl that doesn't like you anymore. And then I couldn't stand the Oilers after that.
Hey, that's why you always played so good against them.
I couldn't stand it after that. And I literally lived, breathed, slept. I cried when the Oilers lost to the Islanders. Like, I was like, knew every stat of every player. And it was, I like that side of the game anyways. But yeah, that was heartbreaking.
Well, you must remember who they took instead of you, right?
Oh yeah, it was my buddy though, so I was happy for him, Steve Kelly. So Steve, and he is unbelievable. Him and I played against each other and kind of got to know each other. He was in PA, I was in Kamloops, and it was cool. But then Winnipeg was so cool because John Pata came running up and picked us, and obviously it was amazing. It turned out great for me.
How was your draft suit? I don't remember the video.
Hey, I looked pretty good. I had sick flow going at the draft.
I do remember your hair.
Yeah, and then I took a couple bad pictures at the draft.
They used to have those corny ones where you had to put your leg up and they made you look a little bit silly.
Yeah, I had the like grade 12, like graduating with the, resting your hand with the Memorial Cup ring on, and I took so much heat for that. Like, still to this day, I take heat for that picture on my draft day.
Why? Because you were wearing the Mem Cup ring?
Yeah. They asked me to. We just won it, so I was pretty excited. So
you ended up winning 3 of them. Now, a couple other notable guys that year were Jerome McGinley went after you.
Whoops. Yeah, oops.
Whoopsie daisy.
Oops. He went 11th or 12th. Like, it was like Jaguar, Jerome, Brian Berard went first. Wade Redden went second. Aki Taki Berg went third. He's an awesome dude, just a great guy. He's a defenseman. Then Chad Kilger went 4th. Damon Lanko went 5th. And then Kelly went 6th. I went 7th. Terry Ryan went
8th that year, boys.
Sent him to Montreal. Yes.
Did you know he was such a character back then?
Yeah. So Damon Lanko and I had got to be pretty good friends through the whole process. And he was How about some of that guy's stories? Like, have you guys had him on? I'm assuming you guys
Oh,
have
yeah.
had him on. Oh,
I went over there to go see him at home in St. John.
Oh,
Him and his old man.
I was going to say, did you have his dad on?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that guy has some incredible stories. So
It kind of
yeah.
sucks though that these kids won't get to experience it, like going there and going on stage and stuff, because we're still kind of in a COVID world, much like last year. But nonetheless, we should probably get going on some of these prospects. RA, did you have any questions before we were going to move on?
Yeah, actually, I want to ask Doan, how did you celebrate when you got drafted? That's a pretty good accomplishment. Did you guys tear up Edmonton that night or what?
You know what? So it was such so they did a team, like the Winnipeg Jets did a big team dinner that night. And you don't like the draft started back then. It was all in one day. So it started and went right from start to finish. So the scouts and everything, they've been going straight. There's no computers. There's no stuff, it's all written down. It's all like just busy work over and over. So they've been up for like 5 days in a row. And then they do the draft and they're up from like 5 a.m. till like 11:30 at night. They're like, hey, we have a team dinner. We're going out as a team, as a group. Everyone's going out for dinner. So we head out for dinner that night. Some of the scouts, and I'm not like, they were falling asleep at the table, like full on, like bouncing their head off the table, like trying to stay awake with all these guys they drafted for the first time. It was absolutely hilarious. Our meal was like 5 hours long because they went to like a French restaurant in Edmonton that was really nice and fancy, and it was fun. We had a good time.
Deuce Bigelow, male gigolo, when he's got to tie the girl's hair to the lamp so she doesn't drown in the soup bowl. Because what's the disease when you fall asleep?
Narcolepsy.
Oh, narcolepsy. Yeah, that's a tough scene at the draft table.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
Poor guys. If my parents were there, and my wife was there. She was there. So
RA, I think the draft last year, and then they were supposed to move it up to this year. Even it was supposed to be in Montreal. I was saying before we started recording, like this might have been the first time some of these boys got laid, and definitely some of the first time they've been to a strip club. And it's 18 in Montreal. They would have had a fucking blast.
And you're also setting the bar very high in a city like Montreal, going to a strip club too. But Biz, I think we got to talk about your draft experience as well. Not everybody listening today has maybe heard on Chiclets. Is it true you showed up for the first day and you weren't actually taken that day?
So I was supposed to go second round. I think I was projected like in the 50th range, and bought a brand new suit. My grandparents bought it for me. It was a $500 suit. Now going back to 2003, like that's what, inflation? That's probably like $1,000 suit. So a really nice one. My whole family's there. Of course, your agent pays for the trip. I'm roomed with Dan Fritsch, and he was for sure. I think he ended up going second round, but you knew he was going to go on the first day. And then the first day there was 3 rounds. And sure as shit, I waited 3 fucking rounds and didn't get drafted. And Donor, you said you cried when the Oilers lost to the fucking Islanders. Well, I cried when I didn't get drafted. I was teary eyed. But I'll tell you what, you talked about your kid being happy for all the buddies. I was happy for all the guys because I played under 18 with a few of them. I'd known Patrick O'Sullivan. I ended up going out with a group of guys who had been drafted, and I had a late one. And Listen, I ended up meeting a nice young lady. I ended up playing a road game that night. I didn't go back to my room to get back with Dan Fritsch, and he'd already been drafted the first day. So when I got back in the morning, he had obviously gone and taken the early flight out. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I had to put on my brand new suit again, but go back to the draft because they would do it in back-to-back days starting out in the 4th round. Well, sure as shit, my suit's nowhere to be found. And I call my agent. I say, hey, you need to talk to Fritchie. I think he accidentally grabbed my suit. And he called him, and he was at the airport, and he's like, yeah, he says he doesn't have your suit. And I don't know if the maid went in there or he left maybe the door opened. I was obviously still probably a little bit tipsy, and I was panic mode. Thankfully, though, Donor, my mom had told me, hey, pack your old suit just in case. And I'm like, no. She goes, pack your old suit just in case. Like when I say old suit, we're talking about dress pants that I used to throw in the washer and dryer, and a blazer, like Who Shot the Couch. And you see my draft photo, my hair was everywhere. So fortunately enough, I ended up getting drafted in the first round of that day. And the Pittsburgh Penguins, after they saw me walking down, they might have regretted the selection, but ultimately, it was a great night. It led to a good story, and I still want my fucking suit back, whoever has it. Hey, no word of a lie. I ended up calling back a couple months later to the what do you call it, the hotel, to see if they might have had it in the lost and found, but no bueno.
No. Hey, I've seen that picture. Have you guys seen the picture of him? It's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's an incredible picture.
So we both had embarrassing draft photos.
Yeah, there we go. There
It's
we go.
all-
I didn't have a ring to show for it though.
Better than no draft photo.
Yeah,
That's
right.
true.
It's all led up to this moment, Biz. Everything since then has led up
That's
to
true.
now.
That's true. Let's get to these young
Yeah.
kids draft though.
Well, actually, yeah, I was going to say, Doan, now this weekend, guys are going to be getting picked via Zoom, unfortunately. Now, you're the chief hockey development officer, like I mentioned. What exactly is your role at the Coyotes in making this selection?
I don't really have a lot of say in making this selection.
Okay.
It's you start. I get to talk to all our scouts, and I've been talking with Bill and being involved with all the scouts. They do an absolute unbelievable job, and Bill's done an incredible job of putting together a scouting staff that's just Daryl and Ryan. They're unbelievable. Daryl Plandowski and Ryan Jaworski. They're amazing. And they're kind of running everything and doing everything, and you kind of turn it over to them and let them make the picks. I mean, that's their job. That's what they do. And so for right now, it's just kind of getting caught up on, for the last 3 or 4 days, going over what everyone's kind of, where they like guys, who they like, talking to each scout in each kind of quadrant. Whether it's a Western League, the Q, the Ontario League, then obviously the USHL, and then over in Europe, you're kind of going through everybody, and they piece it all together, and I come up with a plan, and then they kind of explain to you why they come up with it, and everyone kind of has at it. And if they cross over between guys to see who guys like.
Based off this year, where would you say that a lot of the strength is coming from? Is it from the Ontario Hockey League, the Western Hockey League? I found over the last couple of years, probably in the last 5 to 10, the U.S. development program has been producing a crazy amount of first round picks and high end talent.
Yeah, it's this year it's harder than ever because the like the OHL didn't even play. So no one even got to watch them play. So they kind of got spread out a little bit all over the world, where, we had some guys come to the USHL. We had some guys from the Western League come down and play in the USHL. The USHL had quite a few players come down to it. Couple of the tier 2, like the BCJ, and some of those guys had some players come play. And then over in Europe, they all went over in Europe and played in the U18s. And it's going to be so hard to this draft is going to be so hard to gauge, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So do you go with the guy that you saw play this year and you saw him 25 times and you liked him? Or do you go with the guy that you saw last year that you're like, oh, I really want to see where that guy develops, and I wonder how he's doing. And you talk to him on Zoom and you saw him play for a team 7 times, and that's it. No playoffs, no nothing. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really difficult.
So the perfect year not to have a first round pick is what you're saying.
Well, I think everyone still wants a first round pick. It's just, it's going to be difficult. I think this year is going to be a year that you're going to have to just look back and be like, hey, we did the best job we could. And hopefully you might get a guy in the 3rd round that ends up being, really, really good. So you're going to have to kind of wait and see.
And for perspective, I believe the Q didn't play either. You said the OHL didn't have any games. I know the WHL, they ended up playing 12, because I was looking at one of the kids that's highly touted here, Dylan Gunther. He ended up playing 12 games, had 12 goals, 12 assists. But like you said, it's hard to gauge off watching a kid for 12 fucking games. Like how serious were some of these kids who were highly touted coming into the season? Were they taking their off-season training, and like have they been able to find ice and continue to stay on their edges? So like you said, this is going to be probably one of the most difficult years. And even Bob McKenzie, who is, I think, he's the Bob father in a sense of a lot of things, but especially the draft. He said between 2nd and 6th overall, he goes, it could be anyone's game getting drafted 2nd. Now we know the number 1 is going to be Owen Power, and we mentioned a few of those stats coming in. Also, when he was a 16-year-old in the USHL, set records for most goals as a 16-year-old. He had 11. In the next season, when he was a 17-year-old, when you said he could probably step in and not look out of place in an NHL lineup, he was defenseman of the year as a 17-year-old in the USHL and first team all-star. So I kind of compared it to like a Bouwmeester situation where he ended up going first overall, tall, very good skater. I don't know if necessarily Bouwmeester was known for his hands, but I would say he had a decent amount of patience as well.
Yeah, Bo was amazing. I played with Bo at a few different things, and he was, I mean, unbelievable. And especially, I think at 19 he won. At 19 he won defenseman of the tournament for the World Championships. He was incredible. He played 1 year in the NHL and then went over there and played. Um, yeah, he was special. And yeah, that's going to be hard to figure it out. The kid that you mentioned, Gunther, he ended up going to the U18s, and he had a great U18s, and everyone's really high on him. The Q actually played, I think, the most games.
Oh,
They ended
did
up
they?
playing the most. The Western League played a total of 24. A couple of them had to leave to go play in the U18, so that's why he only ended up playing 12. But the O was the only division not to play.
Yeah, the draft's always a crapshoot, even more so this year. Like you mentioned, all the canceled games and the lack of games. But Shane, what are teams doing different? Or specifically, what's Arizona doing different this year when it comes to approaching the draft, given the lack of games for so many guys?
Well, that's the part that we're really kind of doing our best to kind of drill down onto is, okay, did you see him? Have you seen him this year? What did you think? Did you notice any improvement? And in the end, the guys are saying, hey, we're going to have to go with, unless you're really, really confident in a kid that you've got to see a lot last year, you're going to have to kind of wait it out, and hopefully, maybe you can get the kid a little bit later in the draft. And that's how you're going to, there's going to be guys that you're going to get late in the third, fourth round that you're going to hit home runs on, and you might miss in the first because you're taking a kid that you're like, I saw him play 35 times this year and I really liked him. He might not have been the kid you wanted at 29 or 30 or 35 or 40, but you knew the most about him and he was safer. And so it's that constant dialogue between between the scouts and then talking to players. It's incredible what they do in regards to the neuro kind of the psychology side now. It's pretty intense.
Especially so young. So Owen Powers, first overall, everyone seems to have him there. The second guy he goes to school with, Matthew Beniers. Is that how you
Yeah.
say it?
Yeah, Beniers. Yeah.
Beniers. And he was originally supposed to go to Harvard. I don't think in Massachusetts they were going to have any games. So he ended up switching over. I didn't know that you were allowed to do that. He must have not signed his letter of intent, but goes over there, has a pretty good year, and is highly touted as probably the best two-way center in the draft.
Yeah, I really like him. I'm a big fan of him, watching him play. He had a great World Juniors. He has a big motor. He skates really well. He kind of has a little bit of the Mike Modano, when he's going like, where the jersey's kind of flapping in the wind. I'm not saying he skates like Mike Modano, but
you heard it here first.
Yeah, or that he's going to be
one of
Mike
the best
Modano.
American-born players ever.
No, but he kind of has that look about him when he's skating. And he's got a great motor that never quits, and he's got a really good shot, and the kid works hard and good hockey sense. They actually have 3 guys from Michigan because they also have the Johnson kid who is he's probably going in the top 10 as well.
The 3 players from the same university have never been all selected in the first round of a draft. And actually the other kid that you mentioned, all 3 of them are actually ranked in the top 10 right now. So that's actually pretty remarkable. So I don't know what Michigan's paying their players, but
Biz, and then Luke Hughes is going there next year too. Luke Hughes is committed to go there too.
Oh my goodness. What are they doing there? What they got over there, Donor? University of Michigan.
They got it going on right now. You actually met his dad, Biz. Johnson's dad. When we did the telethon, that was his dad down there with Horty when we were doing the telethon.
No way.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's Ken Johnson's dad.
Okay,
yeah.
Maybe we'll have to get him on the podcast at some point. Now, anything else you know about this Beniers?
Yeah, he's a kid that's, kind of like what everyone said. He's a guy that's he has the opportunity to be a top line centerman that he plays the full ice. He's got the big motor is what everyone really raves about in his skating, that he can skate too, but he competes. When you watch him play, he just does all the little things right all the time. Like whether it's he's on the right side of the puck in his own zone, and then he's in the forecheck, he's taking the proper angle, and then he's back checking hard, and he does all the things right. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's going to be a good player, and he's going to make somebody really happy.
And with the forwards that the Seattle Kraken selected, you got to imagine that this guy could probably step right into the lineup, for crying out loud. I don't know what they were smoking when they were making the picks. So you got Buffalo taking Powers, you got Beniers going to probably Seattle at number 2, and this is when things really open up. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say. Sorry, Donna. There's a bunch of different lists, and it's funny. Everyone has a top 10 different, but one name that continually pops up is William Eklund from Sweden. What do you know about him, Donor?
Eklund he's a centerman, left winger guy that everyone's really, really high on. I heard someone describe him kind of as Suzuki with a little bit more bite, maybe. Suzuki's doesn't kind of push back as much, but this guy they think might have a little bit more bite. But that type of player, a centerman that kind of does everything right, a little bit really skilled, and is going to be somebody that everyone's excited about. I see him bouncing around too. The next 4 or 5 guys, it really depends on who you like and who you've seen a lot of. It was hard for some people to get in to see the guys that played over in Europe just because of travel this year. So even though it started to relax a little bit towards the end of the season, it was hard to get over into Sweden and see everybody. So that's another thing that they're watching on video, or the scouts that are watching them aren't the guys that they usually count on to. If you like someone in the top 5, you specifically usually send a couple people over to look at them. This year it's been tough because those people can't get into the buildings. They can't get in to see what's going on. And so it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but I think Eklund's he's going to be a guy that whoever ends up with him is going to really like him. He's going to be a guy that has a big impact, I think, right away.
Yeah, Swedish Hockey League Rookie of the Year. And somebody was saying he got COVID and then had to get some surgery. So I don't know how many games he ended up missing because of that. But, I mean, still put up good enough numbers and had a good enough sample size in order for them to be confident. He seems to be the guy that they have pegged between about 3 and 5. And the guy who actually I had written down as the 3 pick, and keep in mind, folks, like we're taking a lot of this off of Bob McKenzie knows most of this. Simon Edvinsson, and he's another big defenseman out of Sweden. I think he's listed at 6'3", and I don't know anything other than that. Is he just kind of like a silky smooth Swedish guy?
Yeah, he is. He played really well. Sweden. He took a little bit of a hit when they went to the U18s because Sweden's team wasn't as strong. They were missing Eklund and they're missing a few guys, and Team Canada kind of thumped them pretty good a couple times at the U18s. And he took a little bit of a hit there, but he's a guy that's really smooth and really going. There's talk that his upside is really, really high. Whether he gets there or not, he has kind of the whole package, being 6'3" and then the way that he moves and stuff. They just when you watch a team get beat, sometimes you assume that everyone's bad, and it's hard, and it's hard to, unless someone does something specific like scores 3 goals and they lose 8-3. Then you're like, yeah, but that guy's good. But when you're just a defenseman that's playing and you're getting pumped, it's hard for them to really look past that. I think he's a great player, and he's going to have a lot of success.
That was a nice way of saying he was playing with a bunch of business, all right? Just a bunch of liabilities out there who dropped his draft stock. So if he ain't getting a nice signing bonus, he could tell all of his fucking teammates at under 18 to fuck off. They could send him a couple of he could send him some Venmo requests.
Oh, man.
So the other guy, you talked about the OHL not being able to play games, Mason McTavish. Another guy who ended up bumping up because he ended up going over to Swiss and playing. And he wasn't even in the top 10 coming into this year, but he went over there, great 200-foot center. And he's another guy who's got some bite to his game. He was playing with the Peterborough Petes, right?
Yeah, he was. And have you seen pictures of the guy?
Yeah, he looks thick.
He's a man. Like he's a man. Like
he's Shane Doan getting drafted.
Well, yeah, but he's got your
cock.
hair. He's got your hair and beard right now. Like it's sick. He's got a full beard. He looks like a man, and
got 4 kids.
Yeah, he went over
smoking
to
outside the building before the games.
Yeah,
Post-game beers. Kicks the coach out of his seat when he gets on the bus. Hey, bumper back.
Throws both hands. Just the whole
just
package.
a throwback.
Yeah. He went over to Switzerland and it actually really, really helped him, because I think a lot of people were questioning his skating, and that was and not rightfully so. They just weren't sure about it. And when he got over to Switzerland and played on the bigger ice, he was really impressive, and he really bumped up because of the opportunity that he got in Switzerland. And then he went to the U18s and he was a man. Like he was, when you watched him play against people his age, it was pretty impressive. And he's jumped up a lot, and a lot of people really like him. Hockey Canada really liked him. I know Scotty Salmon and those guys were big fans of his, so they raved about him.
He's like the only kid they didn't grill in the draft questions. You know, when they Terry Ryan actually told the story. Do you remember that one, RA, when Mike Milbury was grilling him? And he says if he's like, if it's curfew's at 10 o'clock and is that what he said? Yeah, he goes, yeah, it's curfew's at 10 o'clock and it's 9:50 and you got a hot young girl with you. He's like, what do you do? He goes, and he says, and then the house is 10 minutes away. And he goes, well, Mike, I fuck her for 5 minutes and then I speed home. I butchered the story. Did I tell it right, G?
Yeah, that was pretty spot on. That was pretty spot on.
Long story short, Terry Ryan, the only guy to basically tell one of those guys grilling him. Now, do you have a draft story about one of the teams grilling you?
No, I got told that I was way too nice to play. That was the biggest thing that everyone said to me, that they would, it was said over and over to me, especially the Islanders.
Too nice?
Didn't they get mean enough?
Yeah, the Islanders said that. That I was
all right, if you knew this guy, when I play with him, he was teaching me little tricks off the face-off to like break guys' wrists and shit.
Dude, I don't know about breaking guys' wrists, but maybe not.
The way how strong you were, it would have broke their fucking wrists. So what did you say to them? Were you surprised by that?
I was, and I laughed. I just said, "Oh, that's." I think some of it had to do with the fact that I was a Christian, and that scared people away because they're like, "Oh, you're really going to be willing to be mean and tough," and I was like, "Well, I think I'm not going to be, I want to win. Like that's where I really, really want to win. So there's going to, I want to win." So,
and we all know the Christians are the craziest fucks of them all. I'm kidding, folks. We're joking around here.
Milbury was running the Islanders back then too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming full circle here a little bit.
It wasn't Milbury. It was one of his head scouts that asked me, and they were giving it to me about the fact that I didn't think I was going to be mean enough. So
he was in the closet having his buddy ask him, grill him about that question, which is kind of ironic. He's like the casting couch. He's in the closet with the camera.
I mean, do these guys think you're like going to try to sell Bibles in the room or something? I remember Rocco Grimaldi when he gets drafted. That was in Phoenix.
Yeah, everybody showed up.
Had a stall locker.
I had to go sell them door to door in order to get my one-way contract. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yes. I'm still selling them to Biz. Just ask him.
Yeah.
He's not reading them. I'll tell you that, Shane.
I'll tell you what, man. I used to go he used to have these not Bible studies, but Donor strong in his faith. And even recently, when you have any issues or anything, you can go talk to him. And man, Donor was the best teammate, and he's so down to earth. And he doesn't spoon feed you that stuff either. It's like you go talk to him and he'll have an open dialogue conversation about it. He's so open-minded. So I really don't, I appreciate you for a lot of reasons, and that's one of them. No, but going back to the grill session though, did you hear of any of the other players getting grilled pretty hard?
Yeah, then it was like they'd have you in the room, and it was like, well, you did it. I don't know if it was as bad in 03 where they'd strip you down. You'd be standing there in your underwear, and they'd walk over and pinch and pull and look at something, see what you, see how you stand and everything. And that was when they were just starting to kind of get into not every team, but just
they did the fat test clamp on my foreskin. They're like, holy shit. Hey, you said in 03, the one story that I heard, I think it was San Jose. They were grilling. I think they said that to Anthony Stewart, they called him soft because he only had 50 something penalty minutes, and he go and right to the guy's face. Anthony Stewart's like, any idiot can run around taking stupid penalties. And Stewie might have only gotten in 2 or 3 fights his draft year, and nobody knew he was a lefty, and he would knock guys out. And the other one was they were grilling Dion Phaneuf, and they said, what would you do if I was in front of the net and I slashed you? And Dion said, well, I'd probably slash you back. And the guy goes, well, what if I slashed you a little bit harder back? And he goes, well, I'd probably slash you harder back. And then he kind of kept pressing him. And then he's like, what if I cross-checked you? And he said, I'd probably drop my gloves and pound your fucking eyes shut. That's what he said to the scout. But mind you, when our 03 draft, I felt like the guys were a little bit more mature. We had this draft where like the guys were men. We had Brent Seabrook, who was 6'2", 6'3", 210, 220 pounds. We had Braden Coburn, who was like 6'4", 6'5", that size. Dion Phaneuf, who, I mean, you saw him step in the league his first year, how he would kill guys. So I don't know if Shea Weber was, like we had like the whole first round was just guys who were like absolute mutants. Jeff Carter, the list goes on and on. But I don't know if these younger guys would necessarily have that type of bite back as they did back then.
What's unreal is they are so polished. Like when you go to ask them questions now, they all have answers because every one of their agents has been, okay, this is what's going to come and this is how you're going to answer it. And just for the young guys that are listening, just be authentic. Like don't answer it properly, but be authentic. Don't try to make it yourself sound like anything that you're not, because people they talk to so many people now and they get so many insights into these kids that just being authentic and being real. If you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know the answer to it. But I'll figure that out or whatever. It's don't take a stock answer for every single time, because that's what they do now. They ask so many questions.
They got the quarterback thing on. They just lift it up for the automatic answer. Hey, you just gave them a cheat code though. Just say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I can't recall.
I don't know. Check the game tape, bud. Check the game notes. All right. Yeah. What's up, buddy?
Yeah. Don, we mentioned obviously no pick on the first round for the Yotes this year, but you got 3 in the second round. Are you guys going to go best available? You lean in a certain position. What's the organization thinking there?
I think right now it's best available that we're going to make sure that, who we think is the guy that's going to, and again, you want to pick guys that you think are good players right now. And you want to pick guys that you think are going to be the best player in, 3 years, 4 years. Those are the guys that you're really trying to find. The thing that you always want is a kid that's improving every year. If he's improving, then it seems that, if it can continue, it's going to be somebody that's going to be really effective. But yeah, we're going to go with probably the best available, and having 3 is important.
Now, will the GM always make the final call, or will that depend on what that particular final call is?
I think that in regards to the way that we have it set up, Bill has a pretty good understanding of what the draft or the amateur draft and everything. So he, if he has a real, I guess, liking of a particular player, it'll be his call. But for the most part, I think that he's shown trust in his scouts and is like, hey, this is your guys' job. I'm going to let you guys make this decision. And that's the way I think you have to go about it, because that's what drives them and gives them the fuel to do what they do. Because what they do is hard, man. They spend a lot of hours doing it.
Donor, what are your thoughts on Cole Sillinger, Mike Sillinger's son, former Blue Jacket? He played in the USHL this past season, over 1.5 per game.
So Bob McKenzie's got him rated at around 11th right now.
Yeah, he's a good player. I know Silly's been skating with us actually. And I know his older brothers, and I know him. I like him a lot. He's a legit, he kind of checks all the boxes. I mean, he's got unbelievable character. He's got an incredible shot. He's willing to play physical. He does a lot of things right. Whoever gets him is going to be really excited about him. He's a guy that's going to be kind of a culture guy on top of a Bo Horvat, maybe like somebody like that type of player. Really, just a guy that when you have him on your team, you hopefully have him for a really, really long time, because he's going to be his shot is legit. Like, he scores.
USHL Rookie of the Year this year. I'm not sure where he played in the USHL, but projected 11th, like I said. And his old man was actually selected 11th overall in the 89 draft.
Yeah, he's way better than his dad.
Oh, shots. Hey, is that why his old man was the one who was a bit of a suitcase, right?
Come on. He's Silly. I think it's Silly and JJ Daigneault have them, or maybe Michel Petit. Those 3 guys have I think they were on 13 or 15 teams.
I think Sillinger played on 13 different NHL teams, RA.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
He bounced around quite a bit.
And Silly played for a long time, but you imagine, even if you played 13 years, which is an incredible career, that's every year you're moving. and he didn't. I think he played like 17. I played with him here in Arizona.
And a great guy, just kind of was the
best.
guy who was always the guy getting dealt or getting maybe 1 year deals and ending up somewhere else. So that's a bit of a tough go though. Going back though to the 6th pick, because we kind of jumped back. We mentioned that Dylan Guenther, and
he's a good player.
He played in Edmonton.
Yeah.
We mentioned he only ended up playing 12 games, 12 goals, 12 assists, I believe were his stats, and then had a big impact with the under 18 team as well. And they say probably one of the best high-end skill guys in the draft.
There was talk about him being like, before they really kind of settled on Powers. I'm not saying that it is done, but that he was in that kind of group of like 3 or 4 guys that they thought was going to go number 1. And so if you get him, you're getting somebody that if he'd had a chance to play 72 games and play in the playoffs, he might have pushed himself up into that top tier as being then one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the draft. And I think there's a chance that he goes that high. You look at it's hard the hardest thing to do is score goals, and this guy can score goals. So you find guys that can do that. I'd suggest picking them.
And that would be Detroit's pick in 6th. So they're going to end up getting that stud Swedish kid, I'm sure. Just what they need, another stud Swede.
Well, Russia
We
was
missed a
Stevie.
few guys. The third pick's going to Anaheim, obviously 4th, New Jersey, which we haven't talked about the Hughes brother yet, who's projected at 8th. But I'd be interested to see if they took a stab at Luke Hughes, just because of the connection with Jack. You never know. 5th is Columbus picking, and as we just mentioned, 6th is Detroit. So at 7th, they got this Brant Clark. I don't know a thing about him.
He was really, really good at the U18s in the very first game. Canada, that's a game that Canada kind of blew the doors off Sweden, and he was really good. I think he had 3 goals and a couple assists. He's a defenseman, and he was somebody that everyone got really excited about, and was a lot of talk about him. He's an offensive defenseman that can make a lot of plays. And finding D-men that can score is huge, and he's got that capabilities.
Donor, I know they typically don't go high, but are there a lot of blue chip goalie prospects this year? I know Benjamin Gaudreau is one name that comes up frequently.
Yeah, there's 2 guys that the Cosa, however you say it.
Yeah, Sebastian Cosa from Edmonton. He's 6'6". And then there's another guy, Jesper Wallstedt, who's a Swedish kid. Actually, the last time that two goalies went in the first round, I believe, was the 2012 draft when Malcolm Subban went 24th and Vasilevsky went, I believe, 19th. Decent pick.
Not a bad pick.
So that, yeah, and they said very well that one of these guys could end up going in the top 10.
Yeah, wow. And it's so hard because there's a huge kind of group of people that make picks that think that you should never take a goalie above the 3rd round, like ever, because they take so long to develop, and they're never. And there's a lot of me that agrees with that. And I talked with Roberto Luongo, and you talk with Jason LaBarbera quite a bit. Those 2 guys, I love those 2 guys. They're awesome. But they I mean, obviously Louis went 2nd overall, and Barb's went high too. He was a big high pick out of Portland, and but they say he just developed so much later. It's hard to pick a goalie early. That being said, the final 4 goalies this year were all 1st round picks. So you kind of got to, not that is this an outlier? Is this a different year? But you look at them, 2 of them didn't play for the team that picked them in the 1st round. 2 of them did. And Vasilevsky's just kind of changing everyone's philosophy on goaltending. So it's a copycat league. So it's interesting to see if someone goes after these 2 guys, because they're both special. I got to watch a lot of Wallstrip, the Swedish kid. My son played against him a bunch kind of growing up. So I'd watched him since he's about 10. He's a really good goalie. He's an 02, so he's a late 02. And then the other kid is he was hard. I don't think he lost a game this year. And then
he's 6'6", and they say as far as he's not awkward. He skates well, and so he might be the guy that somebody takes a stab at in the top 10. Yeah, and that would be obviously if you hit on it. You look at even Knight last year, and all of a sudden what he's doing in Florida. I think that talking with Louis about him, he's pretty excited about. And they got a great group of goaltenders there with their young guys, and then Katahat. Katahat. He's not. That's how RA says it. Give us a Katahat, RA.
What year was Carter Hart drafted? Biz? Do you remember off the top of your head?
No, but I believe he was a first rounder as well, right?
Oh yeah, he was a high pick.
Yeah, he was a high pick. So we were talking about Jason the Barber though. So him, RA and G. So him, Yans and Donor, they
no.
were all about the wrestling. And you know how we've been seeing it more and more, but I think we might have been one of the first teams that actually got an authentic WWE championship belt made by the guy who makes the real ones. That was
we
like
were the first to do it for like sports teams. We Barb's was all about this.
How much did this thing cost?
I think it was about, I don't know, 35 or 75, either 3,500 or 7,500 bucks.
I think it was over $5,000 for sure.
Yeah.
So we used to hand it out as the player of the game, and him, Jens, and Donor would be watching all these old throwback WWE wrestling matches on the plane. Like, I'm like, you guys already know who the fuck won these. Like, this is crazy. But they loved it. They knew all the wrestlers' names.
Oh, it was Brutus ba 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 ba.
Remember how much he would sweat? He would sweat as much as you are, right?
Hey, Brutus, he's a Massachusetts guy too. Brutus the Baba Beefcake.
Yeah,
he shows up at
yeah.
Bruins games all the
No
time.
way.
Yeah,
I
he
love
shows up
that
in the
guy.
locker room still.
Yeah.
By the way, Sillinger, 17 seasons, 12 NHL teams. I think that might be the record for most teams by one
Him
guy.
or JJ Daigneault. I played with both of them, and maybe Michel Petit. They're all right around that. They're all right in that same number.
So we kind of hopped to the goalies, and before. Oh, go ahead, RA.
No, go ahead. I'll go after you, Biz.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, should Mr. Hughes start selling his sperm? Because this might be the first time that somebody's had 3 kids and they all get drafted in the top 10. So the only other, I guess, comparable would be the Stahl brothers, where Eric went 2nd overall, Jordan went 2nd overall, and Mark ended up dropping to 12th overall. I'm not sure if the other one ended up getting drafted, but if he did,
he got drafted by the Yotes, third round.
The third round. Oh, geez.
Yeah, you might have been the
shocker.
fourth
We're the
round.
one team to miss, for crying out loud. and then of course Jack went 1st, Quinn went 7th, and then Luke right now projected at 8th. But as I mentioned, could go 4th if they want to keep that connection going. He's probably the tallest of the bunch, 6'2", and he's a defenseman.
Yeah, he grew a lot here in the last 2 years. He really shot up. I watch him quite a bit at the program. He's unbelievable skater. And that's his thing. He's probably arguably the best skater in the draft. He's just a guy that you're going to have to, deal with for a long time. And he's somebody that's going to be effective on the blue line.
Plays a bit different style than Quinn though, doesn't he?
He does. And he's a guy that, they're the 3 of them are pretty special players. Jack and Quinn are elite, and you're hoping that this guy is too.
Old man's got the heaviest sack in the league, other than maybe Walt.
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's empty.
Yeah, he's got a good batting average at least.
Yeah.
So you can get some of that at the NHL.com Pro Shop. And then I guess one guy you played with who ended up having a couple special offspring was Walt Tkachuk. Matthew and Brady. Look at the success that they're having right now. Holy shit! Did you expect that when you were playing with him when those little Rugrats were running around?
You know what they well, Brady was little, but then he would always come back and he'd come riding out at the farm or at the ranch. He came in, him and Maddie would come out, and Stan and Shelly would take him riding. They'd ride straw. Like Maddie, with the one time when I played against him, asked me about if Strawberry was still around, the one of the horses that him and his brother and his sister would ride, which was weird and cool to talk to him on the ice, because that was something I'll never forget. But yeah, they would come out and stay and go for a ride. But those guys, holy man. Talk about
crossed over with Matthew.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Let the kids play, buddy. Holy shit. That's wild.
Yeah.
And then Walt was obviously retired. Was he texting you after the game about it?
Oh, he no, they didn't. We didn't ever end up texting after. I was always pretty nice to him. He's such a good kid, man. He is such a good guy. Like, both of them are such just good young men. So and Brady is legit tough.
Oh yeah.
Maddie's going to drive you crazy, but Brady's really tough. They're both tough, but Brady's
going to back it up maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, and Maddie's probably, Maddie's just going to drive you crazy, and you're going to try to kill him, and then he'll beat you up too. So
he's going to fake fall and land on your leg and tear your MCL. You're out 4 to 6.
Oh, they're so competitive, man. I love that. That is the best part of their game.
Yeah, I just actually bumped on their grandfather the other day back here in
Oh,
Boston.
what a good man.
Yeah, Jack. Yeah, great guy. But he was in the
Oh.
fire department with my dad many moons ago.
No way.
Yeah,
Oh,
they went on the job together back in the 70s. But so I would say your horse named Strawberry. Anybody else donor, I would think that might be a Cheech and Chong reference, but I know that's probably not up your alley.
Yeah, I know what you're going with there. Though. You're right.
Yeah.
Now that I said it, when you said it, I hear it. When I said it, I didn't hear it.
I wasn't looking at his neck, man.
It's to hop in about the draft. I mean, I'm trying to mention these teams and what they need. Mind you, every one of these teams that we've listed off, they need help in every regard. That was the 7th pick would have been San Jose, and then 8th being Los Angeles. So, I mean, I would probably say that Los Angeles needs help on the back end. You can't imagine if the team keeps losing, Drew Doughty is going to be around much longer. And I feel like once they got rid of Martinez, McNabb, who else did they lose back there from their championship run? A few guys, but they're just a little bit depleted there. So maybe Luke Hughes ends up there. I mean, he is projected 8th. Now 9th and 10th is a couple Canadian teams, Vancouver and Ottawa. And I think you might have mentioned this kid earlier, Kent Johnson. Were you talking about him earlier, Donor?
Yeah, that's the guy that you met, Jimmy Johnson. That's who you met.
Yeah. What should we expect from him?
He's a really offensive guy. He's a guy that smart, good hockey IQ, loves the game. His older brother is just finishing up playing college. I skated with his older brother a couple of weeks ago. Really nice kid, but just a kind of a loves hockey, loves to play the game. Really good hockey IQ, offensive, like smart, and going to score. He's going to be a point guy. I don't know if he's as much a scorer as he's just a playmate. He's a really good player. Like I think Sillinger's probably a little bit more of just a pure scorer, but Johnson's maybe more of just a playmaker. He's in Michigan, had a great year, really enjoyed it, and him and Powers are pretty good friends. So I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a good player.
And then Chaz Lucius was the other guy rounding up the 10. And keep in mind, folks, as I mentioned, Bob McKenzie and Duthie, James Duthie. Come on, Biz. This was their draft projection. So I don't know. Do you know anything about Chaz Lucius?
That's a fake name.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Let's move on. Oh, they knew I was going to basically just copy their report, so they threw a wrench at me, or what?
No, it's
Chaz Michaels.
Yeah.
There you go.
He played at the program. He was hurt early on, and then when he came back, he has an older brother that's really good too. I think he's at Notre Dame. I think they're both going to Notre Dame. His older brother was a high pick a couple of years ago, and he's a really good player. He's a goal scorer. Like, he's a guy that scores goals. He's a big kid. He's got good hands. Kind of just around the net, and isn't really physical, but he's not afraid. Like, he's just a big kid that scores goals. And the program, when he was hurt for the first half of the year, and when he got there with the U18s, he really kind of helped them kind of elevate the whole program. He was good.
I think most people know when Donor says the program, you mean the U.S. program, correct?
Yeah. Sorry.
Is that under 18?
Yeah. The National Development Program.
So this year, was there a World Junior program, or is it just, how did that work?
So the NDP is the National Development Program, has two teams. They have a U17 and a U18 team, and the U17s would have been all the 04s, and then there's an all group of 03s and they all play in their kind of birth year, and then halfway through the year they kind of mix them together to make the best under 18 team. And now then they pick the top players from the under 18 team, and they all go to the program. As the World Junior team is doing their tryouts actually on Thursday. They start, and then they're doing their program. That will be some of the top boys from them, and then a bunch of the boys from the year before, are the 02s as well, will be there as well.
So let's say you're committed to university. Could you end up switching up your decision and going to play for the U.S. national program instead, or would that not make any sense?
No, so it ends at 18. So like next year, all these guys that were in the program are going to go to different universities.
Okay.
The only one that didn't is Jack Hughes, who got drafted straight out, he didn't go because he was a late birth there. He came straight. Instead of going to college, he stayed one more year there.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of moves in the next 48 hours, or at least there's a lot of anticipation by fans and media that there's going to be. Do you think we'll see a team perhaps trade into the top 3 or top 5, make a big move there?
I think there's talk about it. I think that I think two things. The uncertainty of it makes it so that there's teams that aren't necessarily comfortable making that pick in the top, whatever it is, because you're like, man, am I willing to, bet a top 5 pick on this and our top 10 or whatever it is. And then there's other teams that see a guy that they like specifically and they're like, hey, if he's available, I want to jump up and get him. If he slides to 4 or 5, if one of the Swedes slid to 4 or 5, or, if, somebody really likes Mctavish, they're like, you know what, I want to make sure I get him because I've seen enough of him and I know enough about him. I know more than everybody else. And the price isn't as steep because people aren't as sure. So that I think there might be a little bit more trading just because the prices aren't as steep. And I think sometimes, once it starts, it seems to snowball. But every year I remember I haven't watched the draft every year. I'm hoping to see all these big trades and usually doesn't kind of come to fruition, but this year might be different.
Kind of like the Seattle expansion draft and how all these insiders just ruined it all on social media. Were you paying attention to that?
No, but my son was. He said some people
they ruined it. There was not one pick that people didn't know. Mind you, the last one to finally come out though was Detroit, and Stevie Y's got all his cronies keeping it in the vault, eh? He's a competitive fucking guy, isn't he?
He runs a tight ship. I mean, you talk to everyone that's around him. Him and Pat Verbeek, they do a good job there with what they do, and it's pretty tight and it's pretty close to the vest. And he's competitive.
So we kind of got into those 2 goalies as well. Those got into like the top 15. There was another kid who was listed at 13th overall, Matthew Coronado from the USHL. He was named the top forward of the year. He also played with Josh, so you know a lot about him as well.
I love Matty. He's got a huge motor, good skater, really good shot. I think he ended up scoring 50 goals or right around 50 goals this year in the USHL in like 50 games. It was crazy. He was special this year, and it's fun. He's a guy that I watched him all last year. Was a big fan of him last year. Plays kind of a straight line game where he gives and goes and gets a puck back, plays well with people. I think that's the one thing that is, I think, so important as a young guy, is that if you can figure out that early and it becomes part of your game, because some of the guys get so big and strong that they can beat people one-on-one when they're little. Yeah. And so
but it creates a little bit of bad habits, doesn't it?
It does. And he figured out at an early age the give and go. And I think he's going to be a good player, and he's going to be. Heard a couple teams kind of talk about him kind of like Connors from Winnipeg, where he's just a guy that's a scorer. He goes to the net well. Whoever you play him with is going to like playing with him. He's on the forecheck. Connors is, elite. So you hope that's who it's always funny. You laugh at who's his comparable. If we draft all of the guys that they're compared to, we got a really good draft coming in, because it's like, oh, this guy's going to be the next, Kyle Connors. And I don't know if he's going to be that good, but that's a special player, but that's who he's.
I think you compare them to what potentially those players were good at that age.
Yep.
And where you saw him going. I know people hate when you're like, oh yeah, like for instance, like the second overall pick here, Matthew Beniers, like you think about a really solid 2-way center. You're thinking like, oh, he's like a Patrice Bergeron type where he's reliable everywhere. He's got a good motor. He can kill penalties, plays beyond his years. But yeah, I think part of that is also like gaining that attraction to them as well. Right. You gotta hope they do.
Yeah.
Now, this year in particular, though, given that you said that this kid, Matthew Coronado, played in the USHL, you said he had 50 goals in 50 games. They played so many games. Do you think that this is a year where we see a lot more players come out of the USHL because they had so much bigger of a sample size?
That, and you had so many guys run through it. Like Cole Sillinger ended up there, and a couple, like there's a guy named Jack Barr from the OHL that ended up. He's an Ontario kid that ended up joining Josh's team a little bit later there, and then you look at guys that were going to go to they were going to go away to university and play in university, and then the university teams, a bunch of the Ivy League teams, didn't get to play their hockey programs, so they ended up coming back. That's why Beniers ended up going to Michigan. Farrell from on my son's team, he ended up coming back from Harvard and went back to the USHL. So it really kind of amplified what was going on in the USHL this year and made them a lot better league. And so there will be a lot of guys drafted out of the USHL. I think it'll probably be more in the second, third, and fourth rounds, but there'll be a lot of guys taken out of that league.
Donor, who are some sleepers? Like, who are some guys people aren't talking about that you think, could go higher than expected?
I like Stillman. I think he's a good player.
Somebody mentioned this Zachary Leroux, and he plays with the Halifax Moosehead, and everybody's comparing him to like the next Marchand, where he's just like a little rat out there. So he's fucking, get him in the top 10, baby.
Yeah. Tyler Boucher's boy is a good Tyler Boucher, Brian Boucher's boys. He's a pretty good player. Plays with an edge, plays physical, is somebody that if you draft him, you're going to end up liking him. He's physical and hard to play against. And I mean, those guys, it's always fun when you get to see the young guys come in that have a little bite to them. I seem to kind of attract my eye.
I was going to ask that, is that far and few between because of the style of game now, where those types of guys stand out a lot more?
I think so. I think they're guys that you seem to notice. And for me, it seems all the time it goes back to guys that you recognize and know. Like I know, Bush, so I see his boy and it pops out at me. I know Stillman, and his name pops out at me. And so there's all those guys that kind of
he's skating with a chair out there, but you got a soft spot for him because he's your buddy's kid.
No kidding.
He's at the public skate, just ankle bending like me.
Yeah, pushing it around slowly. So I'm trying to think who would be a guy I like Matthew Nyes. And then again, it falls back to, there's a kid that he's from here in Arizona, and I think that he has a chance to be a good player. And you tend to fall back to the people you know and you're comfortable with.
Donna, well, we've got a few more and we'll let you go. Thanks again for sharing your generous time with us tonight. It's been great. It seems like every year the U.S. shrinks that gap between Canada every year, every draft. We're coming for that ass. You Canadians get nervous yet or what?
I know. So if we took all the best Canadians and put them on one team and left them alone for a year,
and then made a B team, we'd still beat your A team. Is that what you're trying to say, Donor?
Oh, it's so fun to do. Hey, my son is actually going to the World Juniors for Team USA on Thursday.
Get the fuck out of here. That's awesome, dude.
Nice.
So,
man, that is man.
So I got my American flag going now. So,
traitor. I'm going to take a shit in your driveway.
Yeah. So it might have but yeah, he's going to the tryouts.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Congrats,
he's excited
Donor.
about that. And as a dad, I think, that's pretty special. But yeah, it's one of those things that, hockey in the US is growing, and Canada, we still will hold on to that top spot though. You're going to have to come and drag it away from us.
And RA,
yeah,
if he doesn't make the US team, we're just going to bring him back over to Canada, try it out. Like Brett Hall. Didn't he do the reverse?
Yeah, he did he went from Canada to the US. It was funny. It's a funny story. I wanted Josh Manson to be on Team Canada, and Team USA is asking him to go play for them too. And for the world championship. So it's starting to happen more and more as players get both dual citizenship.
Yeah, and that neck of the woods too, obviously producing some great talent. Your son on the draft radar, of course, Austin Matthews a few years ago. It's great to see another hockey hotbed.
Yeah.
Tyson Nash's kid too. He went and played with the Lethbridge Hurricanes. Now he also brought up a good point. I know we've been running long is, like, I feel that there should be a period of time that you could sit out. Whereas if you decide to go to junior, where you could maybe pull out and end up going to university, because you don't end up going to university till you're like 18, 19 anyway. And you get some of these guys in college playing until they're like 23, 24. And I don't know, man. I think they need to change it up. They need to, it's such an outdated thing, much like a lot of things they do with the NCAA. Now they're finally fucking paying the guys, or allowing them to be paid for their image and likeness.
Yeah, I hope that there's a way that they can. the hard part, I guess, is you want to make it so that the player, I mean, the CHL is still producing the most players by a country mile. And that's I mean, it's got teams in the US, and it's got US and Americans, and it's got Europeans, and everyone seems to play in the USA in the CHL. And you'd wish that there was a way that they could kind of make that kind of smoother transition between the two of them, between the NCAA, especially as my son has kind of just dealt with it, all the decisions that you have to make at such a young age. It doesn't seem right.
No, it's great. And at least your kid's able to vet it through you. Whereas like some of these parents have never played and they've never even been around the game as closely as you have, not even a quarter of how close you have. So that makes it even more difficult.
Well, yeah. And the hardest part is it's such an individual basis. Like my son, wasn't a big kid at 16 years old, and it didn't really necessarily make sense. When I went to junior, I was 205 pounds and can play, and was thinking like, this is fine. I can go play junior hockey. My son was 150 pounds, 145, 143 pounds when he was 16.
Because he couldn't get any food at the dinner table. You took it.
Really? Come on. But
who used to tell you that was it Ray Whitney said you're going to eat yourself out of the league?
Yeah, he used to list 3 guys that he'd all compare me to. I'm not going to say their names, but he'd say, "Yep, ate himself right out of the league." I was like, after 22 years, you got to give me a break. Like, I'm just a bad player now. I'm not ate myself out of the league. I just had to leave the league. So, but yeah, he's a pretty good guy.
Oh, yeah. Man. Well, Donor, we thank you so much for your time, man. Like, I always love chatting with you. And the fact that your kid's in the mix has made you so much more knowledgeable on these kids. I figured what a great guy to have on to talk about all these young prospects.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's cool. And the last 3 days, it's been like drinking water from a, fire hose, trying to figure it all out on who these guys are the scouting staffs that they do an incredible job. I can't say enough about the scouting staff that we have here in Arizona and what they've done. That's been impressive. But you get talking to guys all around the league, and it's like, man, these guys, it's their lives. Like, they know everything. Throw a player's name out, and I watched him 17 times. One time in Sherbrooke, I was there, I saw him, and then it's like, then I watched him play over in Bratislava. Then I watched him play in Dallas, and then it's like, it's unbelievable. These scouts are everywhere, and they do a good job.
That's where I played under 18 in Bratislava. We went on this tour, and the lady kept being in Bratislava, and then she would like list off a stat, and then she'd be like in Bratislava.
Okay, where's Bratislava?
So we went out.
What country is it in?
What country is it in?
They parted ways. I believe that Bratislava is now just in Slovakia.
Yes, out of way. It's
because it used to be
the capital, though. It's not the capital, but
it's not.
No.
I thought it was. So I don't think
capital or something.
I don't know what year it was, but it was soon thereafter when we went there, or before, excuse me. Is they separated. It used to be Czechoslovakia, then it was then the Czech Republic, and then Slovakia. So that's how I know that around that time. That was the first time I signed a breast. When I went to under 18, this girl outside the stadium asked me to sign a breast. Dude, if I told you some of these stories, Team Canada has these in a vault, some of the crazy shit that happened at this party that we went to after we won the gold medal. Was that
at the Helenka? Was that the beginning of the Helenka?
No.
The Ivan Helenka tournament.
This was under 18. It involved Anthony Stewart, dude. It was a crazy time. We had Nathan Horton on the team. We had that was when Dion Phaneuf was sawing my sticks. I was still using wood sticks, so we got there. I think I had about nine still good use after, because we had to do like a little bit of a training camp in Calgary, and then we flew over. And first practice, first shot, I take my stick break. Oh, whatever, I'll go grab another one. Second shot, stick breaks. And I look over, and Dion Phaneuf is just having himself a time, chuckling up a storm. And I say, you motherfucker, I'm down to fucking what? I was down to 7 sticks. And then sure enough, I ended the tournament. I had 2 sticks left. And we're leaving after we won the gold medal. We celebrated. We're leaving on the bus. And then Dion's like, "Hey, Biz, nice of you to give away your sticks." And I look out the window, and he'd given away the last 2 that I had. So he just fucked with me the entire tournament. But Friends for life. He's a beauty, and you're a beauty too, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us. And RA, do you have anything else?
Bratislava is the capital of Slovakia, Biz. So
Suck on that one.
Wait,
Donor.
what's Kochi? Isn't Kochi the capital? I thought Kochi's one. Never mind then.
In
Yeah.
Bratislava.
And Donor, we want to wish you luck with the Coyotes this weekend, and also luck to your son Josh this weekend. Hopefully he gets drafted. You'll be a proud dad. Also want to shout out our friends at Pink Whitney who sponsored this tonight, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't so far. So, Donor, again, huge thanks. We love having you on. We'll do it again sometime. Enjoy the weekend, my friend.
All right. Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure. You guys are the best. Appreciate it.